The Heresy Accountability Buddies podcast is dedicated to all things Horus Heresy. This podcast delves into the grimdark universe where Primarchs clash, legions rise, and loyalties fracture faster than a Land Raider's track. But it's not just about the lore of the Horus Heresy. The Accountability Buddies also explore the gaming side of things, from painting and modeling tips to product reviews and ideas to help you in your hobby. So, whether you're a seasoned Forge World veteran or a fresh-faced scout, this podcast is your Vox channel to the galaxy. Expect discussions on lore, modeling, gaming, and maybe even the shenanigans that your hosts somehow seem to find their way into. Remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there are only two things you can count on: heresy and your trusty Accountability Buddies.
Welcome, everybody, to the Accountability Buddies, episode 90. Yes, that is 90. We have a small cast tonight, but a lot of big feelings. So, before we get carried away with all the jibber-jabbering that we are undoubtedly going to do, tonight this episode is brought to you by your host, Jack, and...
Duncan.
And John.
And Jack. So we got to pay those bills, which isn't really a thing, but it sounds good. So here's some station identification.
Do you love resin bases? Then go to our sponsor, Elric Hobbies, for all of your basing and basing accessory needs. Use code HERESYABB at checkout for a discount. Legendary Monument Hobbies. Monument Hobbies is a one-stop shop for all of your painting needs. Use code HERESYABB at checkout for a 5% discount on your purchase. Pop Goes the Monkey. Find maker of third-party accessory bits of arms, legs, backpacks, and more, where you can get 10% off your first order over $125 with code HERESYABB at checkout.
And I would like to say a special thank you to all our patrons out there. So we're going to start off with the news, and John said that we have all the news, and it's not counting the fact that we have to talk about the best video game and the best movie that's coming out here soon. John?
Yeah, so sure. So this week we got previews for next week's GW releases, which is going to be some Warcry stuff. They're actually releasing that Broken Frog statue that I really liked separately for once. So it's going to be kind of cool to pick that up, to have some old world ruins on your Heresy battlefields. But that's really about everything we can steal from straight GW themselves. As Jack kind of implied, there is some Space Marine 2 news. On Monday, it looks like some hackers, some people say Russian, some people say other Eastern European countries, got a hold of an old build of Space Marine 2 and leaked it all over the internet. I saw a couple screenshots from the game. It looked like a full build. And then 2 days later, Focus Interactive came out with a big announcement that said, hey, this was a build, but it's an older build. It's almost 2 years old at this point. So everything that you saw in the game should be changed by the time it actually comes out. Everything I saw from the people that reviewed the leaked copy said that it was a fun game, and there was no real negative responses to that. So it'll be interesting to see what we actually get when it comes around. I didn't see any videos. I didn't see any real gameplay footage or anything like that. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what comes of Space Marine 2 when it finally hits shelves. From other affiliated GW partners, Weta Workshop, they made a big Space Marine Captain Titus statue a few months ago. They announced what they're going to be coming out with for the rest of the year. First is going to be a 1/6 scale Horus statue. So this is to scale with the kind of 12-inch figures and Barbies and things like that. And it's roughly the size of a human torso. GW put up a video of the Horus statue kind of as they're working on it on a table, and it's ginormous.
Yeah, he is huge.
Yeah, which is probably why they come with a price tag that starts at $1,500 and goes all the way up to $3,000 usually.
Yeah.
In that video, they also previewed some of the next models that are coming out. One of them is going to be a Age of Sigmar Goblin, and then there's Saint Celestine, and then I think there was a Space Wolf. So There's going to be some really cool stuff coming out from there. I hope they start doing smaller statues, maybe something's a little more affordable for the hobbyists that aren't going
They
to be,
also
you know.
they did do a 1/6 scale Abaddon that they're announcing, and the video of that is sexy.
Oh, and then what did I say? Did I say Horus?
You said Horus.
Oh, well, crap. He's got Horus's claw. It's Abaddon.
Yeah, it's Abby.
Yeah.
It's the spoiler, and like I said, he looks sexy.
Yeah.
He's not the heresy era Abby, but yeah, he's pretty sexy.
Yeah, they did take some creative liberties with some of the changes to the model from the 40K version, like the spike changed orientation and some other small armor detail changes. But for the most part, it's a gorgeous model.
Yeah, I want it. I just don't want to pay $1,500 for it. Now, what I would say is, if they would reduce the price tag on it and let me have it unpainted, I would paint that myself, and I would absolutely love that.
Yeah, and this is, if you remember way back in the day, Forge World made a Abaddon statue that was based on the old second edition model.
Yeah,
and that one wasn't near this size, but it was like $300 or $400, which isn't terrible for a statue that are that kind of size.
Didn't they do an unofficial bust of like just the torso for Abaddon inside the Cataphractii Terminator armor? Or am I thinking someone else did that?
There's some second companies that have done it, not GW or Forge World themselves. The closest they had was the big resin Abaddon, where it looks really close to the second edition model.
Okay.
And that one, it was a really low print number, like 200 or less. And I think I see them every now and then pop up on eBay for about $1,000.
Okay.
So if this one's going to come out too, it's going to kind of fight that pricing scheme.
Do you know what stuff like
I
this
would personally like heresy stuff.
A really good pathway for stuff like this to be?
What?
A STL for people with printers. Because everything you're saying sounds great.
People are coming out with Primarchs and stuff like that. Like I got an Emperor that STL that's like scaled to about this. But that's still huge.
Yeah, like I would pay $30 for an STL of like something like that from GW that was GW official. That because I see the appeal of stuff like this, but it's never anything that I would buy myself.
Because of that price tag?
Because of the price tag.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I buy a lot of silly large things. I mean, I've got 2 giant Metal Gear figures and the wall of backlog and etc. But yeah, I kind of draw the line when it starts getting comics.
I mean, we're already in a expensive hobby. So jumping onto something like that, while cool, neat, and something I think we would all be really like ooh and ah about having, it's not something that I absolutely feel I have to have. It's just something that I would like to have. It's not something I'm going to sit here and go, I've got a spare $1,500 laying around and to throw at it, even if I do. That's where I think the people who have a lot more money than sense. But listeners, if you're out there and you have more money than sense, buy an Abaddon for me. I would love to have that.
The other problem I have with it is finding the space for it. Because I've always looked at some of these statues and like, there's been a couple that I was kind of close to pulling the trigger on, but the problem is you can never like see all around it. So you almost need it to be like set up in the middle of a room, and then not have to worry about pets or children or your drunken self knocking into it, or maybe get a turntable in the corner or something. It's just like I kind of feel like you're missing out once you buy one of those and stick it in a corner or something.
Yeah, you're not really wrong there at all. I mean, like
especially because the Abaddon's got that big fur coat. Like the video is gorgeous. If you guys want to kill 5-10 minutes, I think it is for the preview. It's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, it looks awesome the way they scale him, the way they designed him in CAD. The sizing of it, and as they're painting it, just looks awesome. Yep. Like I said, I would happily buy them myself, like for an official one, maybe even if I could paint it myself. But so I'm not going to be able to get to do that, and I don't have a spare $1,500. That's just not going to happen. But that's that.
So, on cheaper news, this week was Amazon Prime Day, days, week, whatever it is now. Amazon marked down a whole bunch of Joy Toy figures down, in some instances 30 or 40% off, and some of them weren't even the ones in stock. It was the pre-orders that went on sale.
Oh, I wish I knew
So
that.
I picked up 3 or 4 figures, and even placed a pre-order for Horus to make terrain out of. So coming soon to the highway table / garden that I was been keep designing in my head. I kind of scrapped a lot of it, and I'm kind of adding in some of these Imperial Fists that I'm picking up to kind of rebalance some of the setup on it. So always keep an eye on the stuff like that. If you want to look for a way to kind of get alerted to some of the price drops, there's a website called Camel. All 3 exactly the same word, camel, the humped critter from the desert, and then that will send you an email alert every time one of the items you're watching on Amazon drops below a certain threshold.
Okay.
The hump critter
Yep.
from the desert.
I have to say what things are because some people get confused with my accent when I say some words.
Okay, so John, you've got some Joy Toy stuff before, right?
Yep.
How big is like? I know that the Abaddon, not Abaddon. I know the Horus is supposed to be 1/18 scale, and all these are 1/18 scale. Have you seen how large any of the Primarchs are compared to one another? Because there's a Lehman Russ. Actually, I think there's 2 Lehman Russes.
No, there's just the one.
Oh, there's just the one. Well, there's
Yeah,
Russ, there's Horus, there's Magnus. I mean,
There's 40K Gulliman.
how big are they
There's
compared to their sons?
They're pretty big. I've seen pictures of them like beside each other. There was the picture that Joy Toy released on their Twitter last week when they announced all the 1,000 Suns, and all the 1,000 Suns come about up to his nipples. And I just measured the Calgar's honor guard that I keep in the hallway while I'm trying to figure out where to put the rest of them. He's 5 inches tall to the top of his head. And then the banner is another 5 inches on top of that. So some of these figures end up being pretty beefy just with all the accessories and stuff they come with.
Russ is roughly about 7 inches tall, and then like the Mark III Breacher Marine is 5 inches.
Yeah.
Okay, so the actual Primarchs
Marines are about 5 inches.
Are noticeably bigger than the Marines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So last week we talked about Magnus, and he was 9 inches tall to the top of his head, and then you had another 2 inches or so of horns that are on top of that.
Okay. I keep waiting for them to release some of the World Leaders because I'm straight up going to buy Karn when he comes out. I just got to.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I want to get some of them now just because I want to do terrain and stuff with them, but at the same time I kind of want to paint some of them. But at the I really just want to wait for Ultramarines just to be released. I've seen people with collections of Joy Toy figures that make it look like they're trying to play 40K. I think it'd be really cool to do a kill team game or something where everybody only needs 3 or 4 figures. I mean, there's a lot of 1/18 scale accessories and stuff that Joy Toy themselves put out. They put out a bunch of diorama sets. And then you can also get all the stuff that's available for G.I. Joes and other figures that are the same scale. So there's a lot of accessories and terrain and things that you can buy that complement these stuff.
I mean, there's the McFarlane toys that are already out there. It's just
those are closer to like, I don't know, they're a weird gray scale because the Marines are almost the same size as the Terminators, which are the same size as the Guardsmen. The Ogres are a little bit bigger. They're weird scale wise.
Yeah, that's the way everything seems to be. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, the Joy Toy stuff, from what I've seen scale wise, seems to keep it fairly consistent. Like even they came out with some Hormigons, and they're pretty small, but I mean they're priced that way too. So most of the Space Marines you're starting at about $40 a figure, going all the way up to $80 a figure, depending on what they come with and stuff like that. But the Termagants were something like 25 or 30, and they're kind of dog height, but they're longer. So
if anybody out there has a collection of some of these guys who would like to throw down at Adepticon in a kill team style format with that, please let us know because we think that'd be awesome to see happen. Well, I personally do. I think it'd be great to see someone doing that at a game or at an event, like a DevCon or something. That'd be neat.
Yeah, and we're not done with news yet. The other thing that came out this week was the Starforged is going to be re-releasing a lot of their older pins. The Blood Angel symbol, Mechanicus symbol, Grey Knight, Space Wolves, Death Watch, Titanicus symbol, Iron Hands, and Ultramarine symbols are all getting re-released. These are about 2 inches tall. They work really well for. I bought a couple of them to put on buildings and stuff like that that you've scratch built, or even if you're scratch building a Titan, you could buy the Titanicus logo and put it like on a leg armor or something like that. Um, they're really nicely detailed. They're only about $14 US, so it's not that bad to add onto your collection or to put on your game bag to make sure that you know it's yours. And I talked about it a while ago, shipping, but it finally showed up at my place. The totally not Deathcore of Krieg 12-inch figure came out. This is an unofficial model that's kind of styled after the Deathcore of Krieg. It's based on the War of Hammers universe. So obviously we know what they're trying to do there, but
no, not at all.
It's a gorgeous figure. It comes with a full-length last carbine, 3 bags. It's got a little prayer book in there. Every page is Ipsum, but it's done with nice Latin font. It's got little prayer beads as well to go with the book, and then the helmet, multiple layers of clothing and accessories. So it's a fully fledged figure. I really like the look of it. I'm just trying to find a spot on my shelf to figure out where I can put it.
Ugh. And let's not talk about slots on shelves, because right now I don't have any space. Even though I've already built another bookshelf, I just don't have the space. I really need to finish reorganizing this chaos down here.
Yeah, and that's actually going to lead me into. I think I'm done with news. So I was going to segue into what I've been working on this week. I've been rearranging the house a bit more, and so I took down some of the Marvel artwork that Christine and I had gotten, and I replaced it with some of the 40K displate art available out there. And so y'all don't know what Displate is. It's a company that does a lot of production of video game and tabletop miniature and other different artworks available out there. All of them are printed on tin or metal signs. And so what you do is you put a magnet on your wall, and then you put the Displate on the magnet. And so this way you can easily swap out any of the artwork you don't want to keep up anymore, or move it around, or easily kind of level it and set it up how you want. They come in a couple different sizes, and they come in different types as well. So the ones I got were an Ultramarine Space Marine, an Ultramarine Terminator, and then a Custodian. And I got them in what they call texture paint. So some of the details on the paintings themselves are textured, so they kind of pop out when the light hits them just right. If you've ever watched a bunch of, they do a lot of advertisements on podcasts and YouTube channels, and they talked about all the different discounts you can get. None of those discounts work on anything other than the most basic displays. So I kind of found that out the hard way after I'd kind of figured out which ones I wanted to add to my cart. And the only thing I got a discount on was one of the extra magnets I picked up. But I definitely think that they're worth it. And I'll post a picture of the ones that I got on the podcast Facebook page so everyone can kind of see what they look like.
Please do. I'd like to see those.
Sure. And then the actual hobby work this week, I went through and laid out all of the HISS tanks that I'm going to be using for Sentinels and set up how I want to get the Volkites done. I kind of asked a couple friends which ones they thought looked better, and I think we all kind of agree that the double Volkite looks a little more in line with some of the other Cobra tanks that I'm working on, so I'm going to be setting them up that way. I've got a contact with a couple friends that are going to bring me some more Volkites so I can get all 12 tanks done. I only had 20 Volkites, and I need 24 of them to finish off the list. While I was doing all this cleaning up, I found a tray of Space Marines that I'd kind of finished. They missed some of the pumice on their bases, and then a couple last touched-up colors before I go in and add in the clear gloss colors for blades and helmet lenses. And so I went ahead and put all the pumice down on those figures because I'd mixed up a lot of pumice to use on all of the Sentinel bases that I went ahead and built this week as well. We're doing our Wednesday call. And then the Displate order got in those Marines, and that's really it. just been kind of doing a bunch of other little in-house projects and things like that. So it's been a lot of work for me this week. What about you, Jack? What have you been up to?
So I discovered that if you buy a Joy Toy Dread Knight, it is almost 18 inches tall. And if you buy a Joy Toy Contemptor Dreadnought, it's 10 and a half inches tall. Duncan, what about yourself?
Well, for myself, I pretty much finished my Praetor. I've got to lay down a final seal on him. I'll probably do that after we get done recording tonight. And then I can let him dry from that. But he's based. He's pretty much done other than final seal or next to last seal, followed by last touch of weathering and blood effects, and then final seal. So he's got about 2 hours worth of work on him left, and he's done. And I can go back to working on more dudes for the combination army that I'm building for myself and Jack. So once I get more of those dudes done, then I'll go and once I get all the guys, the bodies done, then I'll start looking at how many Land Raiders I need to assemble of this pile of Land Raiders I have, and I'll get worked on them so I can have them all done also. But, getting close. We'll see how it all looks when it's all on the table and finally done. Beyond that, hopefully either this week or next week, I'm going to have my buddy Corin come back over, and I will get the table finished, have the 7 inches that is too much height on the actual table legs removed, fixed, squared out, wheels reattached, so we can actually use it as a gaming table and not just a 4-inch table or a whatever the hell workshop table. Anyway, so that's that. That's all my hobby for the week. So hobby down, news down. Anyone want to talk
do
about
announcements?
Yeah.
So let's do one quick announcement before we go into those specific topics. We mentioned a few episodes ago that I went ahead and picked up an extra copy of the End in the Death Collector's Edition Volume 3. Since that is the end of an era, and we are kind of starting our own beginning of an era, we are on episode 90 today, and in just a few short episodes, we're going to be on episode 100. And so we've decided to do a contest to give away the book. So by episode 99, we need to have your submissions in, so that on episode 100, we can reveal who wins. And the only thing you have to do is go into our contest channel and post what your favorite thing that we covered through the podcast is. So that can be when we talked about just a couple weeks ago about making your own characters from the fluff, or when we went through and talked about making loyalist traders and traitor loyalists. Any of thing that we've covered in the past that you enjoyed, just go ahead and drop it in there, and you'll get entered in to win the book. And then we're going to do a special gift to all of our patrons. They're going to get one extra entry in the giveaway as long as they've entered through the filling out what they like the best.
So those entries can be done how again, John?
Go on to our Discord and post your favorite thing that we covered in the past.
Okay. And that would be in our contest channel, correct?
Contest channel Discord. Yep. All they have to do is be a part of the Discord or join the Discord and simply post in the contest channel whatever they liked in the past. And what we'll do is we'll give you a reminder every episode as we come up, but they have to be submitted by our 99th episode. And then we will reveal on the 100th episode who won the book.
Sounds good to me, sir. It sounds very good to me.
Duncan, apart from that, what is our main topic tonight, sir?
Well, sir, we had a couple ideas for discussion, but we actually got, I'm going to reach out to our friend Will and give him a shout out, Will, because he came up with an idea for us to discuss, i.e. pairings, or how to pick your partner. This is kind of discussing how you pair up with someone across the table from you in an event. It's normally set up by In casual play, we set up our own games. We all know that. But this is talking about in like an event format, and how people will set up who you are going to end up playing with at one time or another to start round 1, 2, 3, 17, or what have you. There are a couple different methods that Will has come across. So I'm going to read his straight up as he put them. One is the assignments. Using best coast pairings or some other method, players are matched up by assignment and assigned a table. 2, picking your partner or your opponent. Players are encouraged to pick someone to play against and they pick their table. Line matching. Factions line up facing one another and your partner is the person you line up against. Factional table matching. Players from one faction pick their table. Players from the other faction pick the person or table where they want to play. Zone or map matching. Map is used, each zone representing a table. One faction places a model on the zone or table they want to play. The other faction then places a model in the zone for the army they want to face off against. Or mission matching. Copies of missions are laid out for each table. Players decide which mission they want to play, and they go to the assigned table based on those missions. Those are ones that Will sent to us. So, I'm sure there's others out there. I've seen most of these myself. I'm not really a fan of the best coast pairings because the best coast pairings is typically done with a competitive style format.
I would push against that because all it is a program to short points on however you want points to be sorted. Inherently, that is more skewed towards competitive, but if you're measuring on different aspects, then it will throw out results for that.
Yeah, my dad had written a software back in the early 2000s that basically did that for the local game shop, just to kind of get tournaments off quickly or to help people run the campaigns that we ran throughout the whole year, just to kind of keep everything together. Yeah, I don't mind those as long as it's not like, as long as you're not using it to run the specific competitive tournaments.
Yeah, there's so many different ways of doing it, but like I said, and like you guys have kind of paired off with, the issue I see most often with Best Coast pairings or Beast Coast pairings or whatever is that you're basically doing a separation of winners bracket versus losers bracket. And honestly, that just doesn't fit for Heresy. I mean, yes, there are two sides, but we're not going for the haha, we beat you here, so we're better, or this person won all 4 of their games, whereas this person lost all 4 of their games. I just don't see that one being something that, as a whole, the community really embraces. Making sense?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely. I could see it as a way to use it as the seed in generating the events, and then from there, if you're not happy with your opponent, go ahead and switch up. Which is kind of a lot of what we do at events locally. Is we do the pair off line, and then everyone kind of goes. But if you've already got an opponent, just go ahead and play. We don't care. So it's just kind of that initial seed of get people to move around, because the hardest thing for most people is starting from a blank canvas, right? And that's kind of the beginning of the event is the blank canvas. So we want to do is get people moving, and then from there you can modify it how you want. So the initial lineup is just getting people to kind of break out of their shell and get moving.
I agree. That's one thing I've always tried doing at like, say, for example, at Adepticon or at the Music City Heresy, where you and I got a chance to play a couple of years ago. And at Adepticon now 2 years ago, where you and I actually took a chance and got a chance to play one another again, is sitting there and going, hey, I know my friends who are in this, and I don't get to see them but once or twice a year. I want to play a game with my friends. So starting off a game there with your friends, you're more than likely going to have other people coming up to your table and going, ooh, ah, at armies, or mutual acquaintances, and then kind of being able to pair based off of those.
Yep.
And that's something I've always enjoyed. It's just, hey, John. Hey, yeah, John's a cool dude. Yeah, you got an army. Oh man, that army looks awesome. Would you like to have a game next round? And then they go yes or no or what have you, and then you pair off like that. I think allowing free forming of pairings after the first round for casual events, which for the most part is what we play, I think is a lot more fun, a lot more friendly in a way, and it lets people kind of understand what they're going into. They see the general attitude of a player versus someone they don't know, and then they get to kind of enjoy their next game even more because they know the guy or the gal or whoever is whatever kind of player, so they know what they're walking into. They know if they're walking into a meat grinder, what kind of a list they're facing, what kind of play the person's going to have. So it gives you a bit better, not of a chance to punch them as hard as you can, but a chance to get more of a friendly game in, and that's what I like.
Yeah. The other thing
And
I've seen is usually where they'll start off day one like that, and since day two is going to be either, for 2-day events, it's going to be either be less involved or usually only going to get one game or maybe 1.5 games. What they'll do is they'll make it so day two is a team game. And so this gets you introduced to more people that are maybe you haven't played before, or maybe you kind of saw that person you wanted to play them, but now it's not. But you're on the same team, so obviously you can't play against the. If you're Ultramarines, you can't play against the Raven Guard player. But if it's a team game, this way you could get involved with that person and have a way for you two to bond over the next game as you both destroy traders.
Yeah, and that's something I also think is kind of neat. Is when it is a team game, if you're randomly, I mean, yes, we're all used to the team games where you go there with your partner and the two of you go forth and you have fun. You're playing with your buddy. You're playing against new people as you've never met before. Like Jack and I talked about at our Adepticon event, which turned out to be really cool, where we got to play with Chris and Jeremy and the German model team and the Canadians, and it was cool. But I like the idea of pairing you up with someone who's random, who you don't know, to kind of show that battle makes strange bedfellows and strange allies, and then coming through 2 games with that partner. I guarantee you, unless something has gone wrong somewhere, you're going to come away with a new friend. And I think that doing that, allowing that to that method to build more relationships in the community and more friendships in the community and stronger ties to the community is just a great thing.
Or even pairings on the day of, like come in so that way everyone knows that there's going to be a team game, but maybe not necessarily knowing who you're going to be. Not just who you're going to be paired with, but you could kind of like make recommendations or something.
Yeah.
I mean, we were all the nerdy kid in high school, so we always got picked last anyway. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you're picked last in this, who cares? You're playing Horus Heresy. You're already playing the best game. So go out there and enjoy yourself.
For events like Adepticon where multiple day, so long as one of those days I can sit there and it's still, loyalists versus traitors, but it's more of a, I'm calling you out, Ricky Bobby. I'm calling you out right now to Joe. I love calling out people that I know and I see at all the events, but somehow we never actually get a chance to play. That's
the thing I hate the most is at Adepticon and stuff. Like all the people from years before, but they're on a different event or your paths just don't cross again. You're like, man, that was the greatest game. I want to do it again.
It took, I don't know, probably, 6 years for me to finally play with Pretty. I still haven't played against Pretty. Same thing with Joe. Like, it took forever for me to play a game against Joe. I just like the ability. I want an event to have
our game.
Yeah. Like, I want
to... It took us forever to get across the table from each other.
But I want to, so long as it's multi-day, have the ability at some point to call people out. But I am wholeheartedly for it's well, loyalists have this strategic advantage, so they get to pick out the table, and then you get somebody else gets to walk around and go, oh well, he's playing Ultramarines and I'm playing World Eaters. That's gonna be Word Bearers. That's gonna be a heck of a game. Oh, I've never played against Mechanicum before, or hey, that dude is offering free bourbon and hugs, and I sure like hugs.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. I mean, how many years have all of us been around the heresy community at this point? I mean,
Too many? Not enough. I'm not sure which is the correct answer.
yeah, not enough,
At least 10.
but yeah, shooting at geez, 10. However many years we've been around at this point, we've all got people who through the community we have become friends with, either from sitting across the table and playing a game, or just meeting randomly through the community because of whatever. And as Jack said, not getting a chance to play against people, but very, very, very occasionally getting a chance to call out a friend who you built through the community. Like I did a number of years ago, 2 years ago, when I finally got a chance to play Chris Pretty. I'd never played him at all, and I finally got a chance to have a game with him, and it was a fun game. He brought his Mechanicum, I brought my Sons of Horus, and we had a crackerjack fun game. A couple of years before that, I did the same thing with Zach Paget. And as I've mentioned, I've done the same thing with John. Getting a chance to do that, I think, is vital, even if it's not calling it a grudge match event, but calling it like a call out event, just calling out people you know and want to play who you haven't had a chance to, I think is great, rather than depending on forced pairings, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you can kind of do the same. You can do a little bit of the manipulation with the line as well, so you can make sure that you're at least facing off against a list that is going to, or an army that you wanted to face against. So I know whenever I'm Ultramarines, I usually try to face against Word Bearers when I see them in the lines of heresy, so to make sure that I'm okay. Well, I'm going to move up one person or move back two people just to make sure that I'm getting Word Bearers.
Yeah. What was the next? We've already pretty much kicked off the first two, the assigned and using the pick your partner thing. Line matching, which is what John, you mentioned at the beginning of this as well. And then the faction table matching, which is, oh, hey, cool, there's Ultramarines here and there's the Word Bearer player. Yeah, that makes sense.
The only thing I have to say bad about line matching is in bigger events, it seems to take forever to get that first game started.
It does.
Yeah, and that and the kind of fight between rounds 2 and 3 where, okay, so I'm at the last table in the row, so I need to run all the way to the front to get in line, and then run all the way back to my stuff to get my stuff, and then run all the way back to the front to find where I'm going. And then you kind of do a lot of yo-yoing back and forth, and whether you bring your army or your cart or not kind of depends on where you're located. So it's a little bit annoying in that instance.
Yep. See here, fraction table matching. We kind of covered that already. See here,
zone matching. Now that is one that I think is actually a very interesting one that deserves a little bit of attention. And I'm just going to throw a scenario that's coming up out of the top of my head. You're playing at an event. The event is taking place on a planet. The planet has multiple different types of terrain and different types of table. Just call it, there's 20 tables for this event, so there should be 40 players for this event. And it's broken up in sections of 8. There's the northern continent, then there's a jungle-ish continent, then there's a ruins, industrial waste kind of continent, and then there's kind of an ad hoc civilization continent. And then you pick what kind of the zone you want to play, and you put a dude representing your army on that table zone. And then your faction does that, so you all have majority control, filling up each of the tables at that spot, and then somehow the other faction side gets sit there and puts guys in the various different places as well, and then you and those 8 people from the loyalist side, if you're on the traitor side, pair up at the various tables. The first one goes to table 1 of this, table 2 of that, etc., and then you randomly find someone there. That's an interesting idea for doing something for like zone control for games that involve like resources, command points in a larger overall campaign style system.
Yeah, what was that called when the Real Tac or something like that, where they were running the real time gaming, where they kind of had that with a campaign map.
I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, that didn't take off very well, except in Europe, and it was like done. It was around for 2 years, and it kind of fell apart.
yeah,
And
but it was kind of the same thing where you would move around the map and you could fight certain things depending on what army was there. It's a neat idea. It requires so much extra bookkeeping from a TO standpoint.
It really does. But I see it, if you could limiting it to, just say, a 3-round game or a 3-round event, the people who have won at, say, the Icy Wastes, now the loyalists have control there, so they have more points on like the campaign point zone or score versus the traders who now want to try to regain some control and take that away from the loyalists. So that would be like pushing, like the traders would want to push into that area, and then because of that, they fight a different mission rather than just like an openings battle mission. They play like a different kind of mission, like not a kill points one, but an objectives based mission to try to force people to gain more control of that area. Using that to kind of build a narrative to the event for that kind of map based event, I think is kind of neat. I think it would work well. And I think it could kind of lead to some fun, but it's also kind of different. And I think that, yeah, it would take a lot more bookkeeping from the event organizers. So I'm not certain how well that would work at all.
Yeah, especially because you're basically quadrupling, depending on branching paths and things like that, how many missions and how many maps and things like that you're going to have to make. So we're all kind of older gamers who remember the Wing Commander video games where it had a, if you fail here or win here, you would go down different breaths with free and they would kind of cross back over in certain points. So you could almost lose, 5 or 6 missions in a row, but then win a couple and you'd kind of get back onto the winning path. You could set up something like that in these missions. It kind of depends that, because what you don't want to do is write, the 3rd or 4th failure in a row and never end up using it. So you've kind of got to balance, who's going where and what could happen in these instances to not just overwhelm yourself of not just analysis paralysis in the moment, but anxiety of how crazy this branching path could go.
Yeah, that's a really good way of doing it, of putting that. It's interesting. I think talking about doing the zone matching could lead from just this conversation to you're a TO, and how are you going to plan a narrative event, and how are you going to track it in various styles and ways. I think that could be another very interesting topic that this could lead to future discussion on. But I don't think that would be the place for us to be doing that tonight at this point. You see what I'm going there?
Oh yeah.
The last one that Will mentioned, mission matching. I've got kind of a crunchy problem with that. If you are building a list and you go to an extreme, and I'm going to use my World Eaters nonsense list, for example, where I don't have any ability to score, to secure any objectives. Giving me a chance to play missions that are only based around kill points is great for me and not really great for opponents who are built to have more versatility in a game.
Yep.
I don't really like mission matching for tables. Into each individual table having, or each group of missions being given to the faction saying, "Oh, hey, Duncan, you're only built up for doing this, and you go do that." I don't know.
I think that word goes into if you want detail games, you have strategic advantage and non-strategic advantage to put it into the words that GW is using with their new books. I think what you're describing become less of an issue is say the people with strategic advantage gets to pick the mission in the map, but then the people with less strategic advantage gets to pick which tables they're playing against, if that makes sense, or something similar
Yeah,
to that.
and yeah, and I think that also breaks down better into I don't want like War Master of run events too, where you've got not only do you have the sides, but you've also got kind of a team commander for each side. So someone that can look and go, okay, well we're playing X mission, Duncan's kill point mission, so we definitely need to make sure Duncan's on that kill point table. Otherwise, he's kind of wasting his time on his objective mission where he can't score. So I think you need a balancing factor in that. Bring in more bookkeeping because you've got to have someone that comes in and kind of double checks behind the TOs.
And it also comes to mission writing and having multiple gateways to victory.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this because I think one thing that we all want fun games. That is the entire point of playing the game. If you are organizing an event and you're pairing people off in ways you want it to be equitable, you don't want it just to be this person's going to go into this game and not have fun. You want to make your stuff to where people are all going to have fun no matter what they're playing against or as. And I think that doing mission-based pairing can lead to problems in that area because you are going to do that.
Yeah, I worry though too about if you make the missions so that everyone can do it, you kind of end up with not really cookie cutter lists, but it really ends up like, okay, this is the best build period. So make sure that if you're going to do the mission pairings, that you've got some type of out, whether that's a random third party shows up, or in this instance, because Duncan can't score, we're just going to allow him to score, or something like that. That is a little bit too far, I think. But you've got to have something in there, because going back to I like to run the weird list. Sometimes when I show up to Lucas's events, certain tables I can't score, or I can't pick up the points of interest because I brought knights and knights can't pick it up, or cavalry can't interact.
An entire knight list can't interact with a lot of stuff in some of the missions, and that doesn't make sense.
It does and it doesn't. In some ways, it makes sense because the giant stompy knights aren't going to be manipulating tiny little controls. At the same time, maybe there's something else that I can do to further the war cause. Maybe in my game, it's kill points versus for you, it's take the objectives. Maybe to weight that better, maybe you can score more points than I can because you're actually playing the game, whereas I'm doing silly things. So you've got to, but at the end, the problem is you've got to have some balance.
A number of years ago at Adepticon, actually, no, it wasn't Adepticon. It was, I believe, Music City Heresy. There was a table I played on, and I cannot recall who I played against, but they were playing with one set of objectives, and I was playing to an entirely different objective. Like, our primaries did not match whatsoever. I think he had the primary of get more things into my deployment zone, and I had the mission of destroy more of his actual units. So playing with the actual objectives for missions and giving people different missions on the same table I think that could work out well. Or allowing people to basically pick their own missions from a set of objectives on the table. Like Jack and John are playing, and Jack has the take these 3 objectives in John's or in No Man's Land, and John has break the line. Um, it could lead to potentially both of you winning the game at the same time, and then devolve down to secondaries. And I think that having a flexible set of secondaries that allow people to also possibly pick and choose, while also picking a different primary mission from their opponent, I think that can have a lot of fluctuation in how you could create different pairings that could be fun for people and allow for more variety in games, more player agency in the game, and I think could lead to a better narrative. Because let's all be honest here, there's not been a single time in history, in warfare, reality, or realistically in fiction, where both sides have had the exact same objectives on the table, other than defeat the enemy.
Yep.
So allowing that kind of asymmetrical warfare and asymmetrical gameplay, I think, leads to a lot more fun game, leads to a lot more involvement and like narratively for the 2 players or the 3 players or the 4 players or however many people are on the table. And I think doing it that way can lead to a better game and a better event. But again, that's not really talking about pairing. That's talking about mission building, or event building, as it were. So
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing is at the end of the day, you almost have to think like an EO, depending on how involved you get. So if you've got the War Master set up, coming from a, you almost have to think like a micro TO. Like, okay, well, this mission involves X. I need to make sure that whoever I put on this table can do X. And if no one in your entire team can do X, then you've got a problem.
yeah,
Now, whether that problem is yours or whether that problem is the actual EOs is the kind of, you got to take a step back and ask that question. So most times, to be completely honest, it's the person writing the list. But if you've got a good EO, they can work around that.
absolutely. And I think this is kind of, at least in my head, start kind of spawning me to thinking more about building an event, missions for an event, doing an event. So I really kind of think we might want to talk about that in the future, about how we would do an event if we were the one in charge of it, how we would want to set it up, if that makes sense.
And that's kind of, we can leave this and talk about that next time.
We can. Shout out to Will again for coming up with this topic for us to discuss tonight. Very much appreciated, Will. It's been an interesting bit of conversation.
Yeah, I guess the old almonds activated.
Yeah, you're making little gray cells run around and blink at one another. So kudos to you, man. Any shout outs for anybody tonight, guys?
No, so I'm still working towards Texas Open, which is obviously August 23rd, or 22nd, 23rd, 24th. And so I'll be there for that one. And there's a premier event, kind of a, make sure you still remember what the rules are like on August the 10th before that. And so looking forward to anyone that can make it up for those.
Okay. Jack, anything?
Do we have Battle Barn or Kentucky 30K to shout out? Or is that...
No, we don't right now.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything from Nick and company. I'll reach out this week and see if I can get an answer on that for Battle Barn, and I'll reach out to Keith and see if I can get a shout out for Kentucky 30K. I do know that there is an event coming up for what was his name?
Bum bum.
Yep. Absolutely with the bumps.
Mm-hmm.
Blake's running an event down in Alabama, and I don't remember who the person was that I talked to, but they have an event coming up sometime in the next however many weeks. Hold on. I'm literally going to have to. use the Facebook to find that. There it is. Bama Heresy. If you're not part of that group and you're in that area, you should definitely join that. And here it is. August 24th, there's a Centurion event that is going to be held at Gamer Geeks, I believe it is. That is their location in Warrior, I think. It is just set up for smaller games with Centurion, trying to teach more people how to play the game. So if you're in the Alabama, reach out to the Alabama Heresy, reach out to Blake Hayes. They've got stuff set up. They're trying to introduce new players, like I said, and it's going to be smaller games, 1,500-point games. It's a 3 to 4 round, 4 to 5 turn narrative event. So anyone who can go there are highly encouraged. It should be fun. Let us know how that goes. I'm also going to shout out our friend Mace, who, along with Blake, ran the ATC last weekend. Mace was going to come on tonight and talk to us about how the ATC went, but didn't get a chance to discuss that. Mace has got a brand new baby, and while planning for tonight, Mace yesterday came up with a kidney stone, so that sucks. I'm sorry for you, buddy. We understand how miserable that is. Me personally, especially, unfortunately. So it is what it is. I'm also going to throw a shout out to Trevor. He recently in the Discord posted pictures of his almost finished or finished word bearers that are definitely looking like an army. Looking pretty damn awesome. I'm also going to throw one out to Sword Chuck in our Discord, who got done with his Huskarl unit, which he did custom cloaks on out of green stuff, and it's definitely looking very yellowed. They look really good. Really like those. And my final shout out is going to be to Gabe and Turkey. Gabe for showing Turkey how to build lists and how to play the game against Custodes, because he did that via tabletop simulator and did that this past week after our Wednesday night hangout. And the last bit I'll send out there to reminder is, hey, listeners, did you know that we have a Wednesday night hobby accountability buddy group? We do a hobby hangout every Wednesday night from 8 p.m. Eastern until whatever time people get done and dip out of the chat. There's a lot of guys who hang out there. We've had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun joshing with one another, talking how to build lists, talking about games, shooting the shit about our personal lives, and all the while encouraging one another to paint, to model, and to do stuff in the hobby. So if you're interested in it, please come join. You don't have to actively participate if you don't want to. You can just sit there and enjoy the show as the random nonsense is thrown around. Lord knows there's enough of that. But it's always a good time. It's fun. And hey, best of all, it's free. So come on in down and join.
Yeah, and you can always learn too. So we're always making sure that I know I've posted a bunch of links to different tutorials for Turkey, as well as other guys that are trying to figure stuff out. So if you just can't get over your hobby slump or just something you can't figure out, it's a great place to come in and just ask. I know the first couple I was on, I was just asking about when I was building some of these power armor Marines, just I wanted to build extra sergeants, so what weapon should I go with? And you and some of the other guys just started listing stuff and why it was better to take maces over what I was doing. So
yep,
that's what I started building.
And that's a good example. This past Wednesday, we had one guy in another channel on the Discord asking about how to paint a specific color scheme. And Mike, one of our regulars, Mike Spector, was sitting there and he was giving examples of paints to use, making paint recommendations from various lines. And he and that guy had a pretty good chat. And I'm looking forward to seeing the event or the results of those paint ideas that he threw to him. And at this point, guys, I don't think there's anything else we haven't touched on tonight. Do you?
No, I think we're good.
Nope. Hey, Duncan.
Hey, Jack, what's up?
Tell John to take us out of here.
John, take us out of here, buddy.
Absolutely. So, everybody, we thank you very much for joining us on our 90th episode of Heresy Accountability Buddies. And in this amazing episode, I'm John, and I've been joined by
Duncan.
Jack.
And always remember to stay accountable to yourself and to your buddies and your hobby. And we'll check you. We'll see you next time.
Like and subscribe.